You know, it's funny. In basically every sci-fi movie or show we've grown up watching, when a big ship shows up with gun turrets blazing, smaller ships scatter like roaches when you flip on the kitchen light. But jump into Star Citizen right now, completely backwards. That massive, gorgeous hammerhead you spent weeks grinding for, or God forbid, actually spent real money on, might as well be a piñata when light fighters show up. And they're not even bringing blindfolds to the party. The dream we all bought into, commanding a massive vessel with friends manning turrets, calling out targets, working together like we're on the bridge of the Rocinante or Battlestar Galactica. Turns out that fantasy crashes harder than the game client during Jumptown. Look, we've all been there. You finally convince 5 friends to log on simultaneously, which feels like herding cats on its own. Everyone excitedly piles into your shiny hammerhead. You're assigning turret positions, checking comms, feeling like a proper captain, and then some lone Gladius pilot shows up. And suddenly, it's just embarrassing. Your gunners are frantically spinning turrets, trying to track this mosquito that's zipping around, landing shot after shot on your hull, while you're all collectively hitting nothing but vacuum. And the whole time, there's this sinking feeling in your stomach. Because deep down, you know you've just wasted everyone's time. 6 players working together should absolutely demolish one player. But that's not how Star Citizen works right now. Not even close. With Invictus going on at New Babbage and all those military ships on display looking so damn impressive, you're probably eyeing that upgrade to a bigger ship. I mean, who wouldn't want to captain their own capital vessel? But before you melt that hangar full of ships or reach for your credit card, you might want to understand what you're actually getting into. Because right now, the reality doesn't match the glossy brochure. I've got the moment is sex with quasses. Let's talk about what's actually happening here. Star Citizen's multi-crew combat has a fundamental imbalance that makes no sense either from a gameplay or simulation perspective. The Hammerhead, a ship literally designed and marketed as an anti-fighter platform, consistently fails at its one job. It's like buying a bug zapper that electrocutes you instead of the mosquitoes. Technically speaking, the issue comes down to a completely backward threat-to-value ratio. In almost any other game, or in logical military thinking, putting multiple players in a coordinated unit creates what's called a force multiplier. The whole becomes greater than the sum of its parts. That's why militaries have tanks and aircraft carriers, rather than just giving everyone a rifle and saying, good luck. But in Star Citizen, the opposite happens. Putting 6 players in a hammerhead actually makes them collectively weaker than if those same 6 players were each in their own Arrow or Gladius. And this isn't just a minor balance issue. It completely undermines the foundational fantasy that Star Citizen was built on. Remember those early concept videos showing crews working together on big ships? Yeah, that doesn't work right now. Not even close. And what's especially frustrating is that this isn't some complex, difficult-to-solve game design problem. It's actually pretty straightforward, which makes the fact that it's persisted for so many years all the more maddening. Okay, so let's get into the nuts and bolts of why this happens, because most videos and discussions just say turrets bad without explaining the actual mechanics. The problem comes down to basic physics that the game doesn't account for properly. When you're sitting in a turret on a hammerhead, your S4 guns fire projectiles at about 1,700 meters per second. Now that sounds fast. Hell, it is fast. But here's the problem. A light fighter at 800 meters out is moving laterally at speeds up to 400 plus meters per second. By the time your projectile reaches where you aimed, that fighter has moved 200 plus meters away from that spot. The game tries to help with auto gimbals, but the prediction algorithm just isn't sophisticated enough to lead targets effectively at those speed differentials. It's like trying to hit a Formula One car with a water balloon from a moving platform. Last weekend, a bunch of us got together for what was supposed to be some simple bounty hunting in a fully crewed hammerhead. One of the guys in our turret crew literally does competitive shooting in real life, hand-eye coordination for days. Didn't matter. Against even moderately skilled NPC fighters beyond about 500 meters, we were lucky to land 5% of our shots. Meanwhile, those same AI fighters were just peppering our massive hull from 1 to 2 kilometers out without breaking a sweat. And it gets worse. Remember how patch 3.22 introduced this new cone-based accuracy model with master modes? That actually made the problem even worse. The idea was that weapons would have increased spread over distance, encouraging fighters to get closer. But when you have 2 ships, one tiny, one massive, firing the same class of weapons at each other, guess which one presents an easier target at range? Yeah, exactly. The big ship gets hit consistently while missing most of its return fire. It's a double penalty that it makes no logical sense. Okay, I can already see half of you nodding along because you've lived through this exact experience. You finally splurged on that Carrack or Perseus after watching all those cool ship tours. You gathered your friends, everyone had their stations assigned, you were all hyped up on comms, and then reality hit harder than an S9 torpedo.
The worst part? After getting absolutely demolished, there's always that one person in your crew who says, maybe we just need more practice in the turrets. No, buddy, it's not you. Even the most skilled FPS players with thousands of hours in the game struggle with the same limitations. The top PvP orgs in the game have tested this extensively. The system is just fundamentally broken right now. But look, this isn't meant to be all doom and gloom. These problems aren't unfixable. The question is whether CIG recognizes just how serious this imbalance really is. Because right now, it's not just a minor annoyance. It's undermining one of the core gameplay pillars the entire game was built on. The mathematical reality of Star Citizen's current balance is brutal and inescapable. Let's break it down. A hammerhead requires 6 crew members to be fully operational. That's 6 human players dedicating their time. Those same 6 players could instead be flying 6 separate arrows or gladiuses. In that scenario, you'd have 6 times the combined shield pools, 6 independently maneuverable targets, much harder to track, 6 separate weapon systems that can attack from different angles, 6 quantum drives that can escape independently if things go bad. There is no situation, literally 0 scenarios, where the hammerhead is the better tactical choice. None. And that's before we even get into the cost efficiency, where a single hammerhead costs more than those 6 fighters combined. A couple weeks back, our org got into a proper fleet battle near Arccore. We had what should have been an intimidating force. 2 fully crewed hammerheads and a Carrack with a full complement of gunners. The opposing force had roughly the same number of players, but they were all in medium and light fighters. Going in, we felt pretty confident. I mean, this is exactly what these ships were built for, right? The battle lasted, and I'm not exaggerating here, about 3 minutes before both hammerheads were destroyed. The Carrack hung on a bit longer thanks to its better shields, but once the fighters closed distance, the outcome was inevitable. The most telling moment was watching our lead hammerhead's shields fail. It went from operational to completely destroyed in literally 10 seconds. 10 seconds. That's not a fighting chance. That's a death sentence with extra steps. And you know what's really funny? Some of us were actually saying things like, man, I wish we had a Perseus instead. You know, that capital ship with the massive S7 guns that everyone's excited about? Yeah, well, good thing it wasn't there, because it would have just been another expensive coffin floating in space. At least its concept art can't be destroyed by a couple of arrows. And here's the thing. This isn't new. CIG has tried addressing these issues over the years. They've tweaked shield regeneration rates, increased turret ammo capacity completely. And here's the thing. This isn't new. CIG has tried addressing these issues over the years. They've tweaked shield regeneration rates, increased turret ammo capacity, completely overhauled flight models multiple times, but they keep dancing around the core issue. Turrets simply cannot reliably hit fast-moving targets beyond extremely close range, while fighters can easily damage large ships from much greater distances. It's like they're treating the symptoms while ignoring the disease. So, last week, a few of us decided to put this to a proper test. No theories, no forum debates, just a controlled experiment to see exactly how bad the situation really is. We gathered 5 friends to fully crew a hammerhead, top-of-the-line components, best weapons, shields, everything. Then we got 2 other pilots, good pilots but definitely not the elite competitive PvP types, to attack us in a gladius and an arrow. Basic loadouts, nothing fancy. We met in deep space near Yela, away from any other players or environmental factors that might skew the results. Going in, we thought, okay, maybe it won't be easy, but with 6 of us focusing fire, we should at least make short work of them. Boy, were we wrong. The arrow pilot made a rookie mistake early on. He came in too hot, flew a predictable pattern right into our overlapping fields of fire. We shredded him. And for about 30 seconds, there was this chorus of, yeah, that's how it should work on comms. Then the Gladius pilot showed us the problem. He simply kept his distance, orbiting at about 800 and 900 meters, occasionally boosting in for a strafing run, then pulling back out to safe distance. Our gunners, and these are people who regularly play FPS games, not novices, just couldn't land hits consistently. You'd see the occasional shield flash on the Gladius, but nothing substantial. Meanwhile, that same Gladius was methodically working through our shield facings, one by one. Front shields down, right shields down, top shields down. The whole time we're turning, trying to present shielded sections, gunners getting increasingly frustrated as their shots go wide. 6 minutes. That's how long it took a single Gladius to take down our fully crewed hammerhead, and the entire time, we were essentially helpless. 6 players, supposedly in one of the most formidable anti-fighter platforms in the game, completely dominated by a single opponent who wasn't even using particularly advanced tactics. The comms afterward were just silent. Then someone finally said what we were all thinking. Well, that was a colossal waste of time. And that's the real problem here. It's not just a balance issue, it's actively discouraging one of the most unique and promising aspects of Star Citizen's gameplay.
Now, here's where it gets interesting, because the solution to this problem
isn't actually that complex or difficult to implement. It just requires CIG to make bold, decisive changes rather than the incremental tweaks they've been attempting. Looking back at Star Citizen's development history, we've seen multiple iterations of combat balancing. Remember the 2.6 jousting meta? The 3.10 decoupled superiority phase? Now we have master modes. Each update shifted the meta in different directions, but none have ever properly addressed the fundamental multi-crew imbalance that's been there since day one. What needs to happen is a three-pronged approach, with all these changes working together. First, turrets need dramatically increased projectile velocities. I'm talking at least double, possibly triple what they currently have. When the exact same S4 weapon is mounted on a turret versus on a fighter, the turret version should fire significantly faster projectiles. And this makes perfect sense in-universe. A massive ship has exponentially more power generation capacity than a small fighter. These aren't handheld weapons. They're connected to capital-class reactors that should be able to dramatically boost their performance. Second, the turret targeting and assistance systems need a complete overhaul. The current auto-gimbling is basically worthless against any target moving unpredictably. What we need is a more advanced lead indicator system that can better predict enemy movement patterns and provide gunners with more accurate targeting solutions. This wouldn't be a full aimbot, just better tools to make manual aiming more effective at the ranges that combat actually happens. Third, and this is the game changer, large ships need effective area denial capabilities. Imagine specialized ammunition types for capital ship turrets, flak rounds that create damage spheres on detonation, EMP charges that can disrupt fighter systems within a certain radius, or even guided submunitions that can track targets after initial firing. This would create actual danger zones around capital ships where fighters would enter at significant risk, forcing them to make meaningful tactical decisions rather than just orbiting with impunity. A fourth critical component that CIG has been promising for years is the armor system. If light fighters literally couldn't damage heavily armored capital ships without specialized equipment or targeting specific vulnerable components, it would instantly transform how these engagements play out. A fighter should be able to disable or eventually destroy a capital ship with precision attacks on specific systems, but not just by spraying the hull from any angle. For newer players just getting into multi-crew ships, understanding these limitations is crucial for managing expectations. If you're taking friends out on your big ship, focus on PvE content for now. NPC fighters follow more predictable patterns and don't exploit the game's mechanics as ruthlessly. For veteran players, getting good with manual turret aiming rather than relying on auto gimbals can help, marginally. But understand you're fighting the system itself as much as enemy pilots. If you spend any time on Spectrum forums or the Star Citizen subreddit, you know this is far from a fringe opinion. Threads with titles like HH useless against fighters or multi-crew balance issues regularly rack up hundreds of replies and thousands of views. There's a growing divide between large ship owners who feel like they've been sold an expensive fantasy that doesn't work, and fighter pilots who, let's be honest, are enjoying their current advantage and aren't exactly pushing for changes. There's literally a running joke on Reddit about hammerhead therapy sessions, where owners commiserate over their disappointment and share strategies that ultimately don't solve the fundamental problems. Even the most hardcore PvP organizations have largely abandoned using capital ships in serious operations. They'll bring them out for screenshots or role-playing, but when the actual fighting starts, everyone switches to fighters. As one prominent fleet commander put it in a recent Spectrum post, in the current meta, bringing a capital ship to a fight is like bringing a whale to a dolphin race. You're not just disadvantaged, you're literally a bigger, slower target with more blubber to shoot through. What's particularly frustrating is that the community has been incredibly thorough in documenting and analyzing these issues. Players have created detailed mathematical models showing exactly why turrets fail against fighters, complete with velocity calculations, hit probability assessments, and suggested solutions. These aren't just complaints from casual players, they're well-reasoned analyses from people who understand game design and want Star Citizen to succeed. Remember back when the Polaris was first announced? There was genuine concern across the community about how it might be overpowered, potentially creating an imbalance where solo players couldn't compete with Orgone capital ships. Looking back now, that fear seems almost laughably naive. If anything, the exact opposite problem emerged. Capital ships became a liability rather than an asset in serious combat scenarios. So given everything we've discussed,
How should you approach multi-crew ships in the current state of Star Citizen 421?
First, be realistic about what these ships can actually accomplish right now. They're currently best suited for PvE content, cinematic gameplay videos, org events where combat isn't the primary focus, and the social experience of playing together. They're not viable in any situation where you might encounter competent hostile players unless you have a significant numerical advantage. If you're determined to make your multi-crew ship work despite these limitations, here's a comprehensive strategy that might help. Never, ever operate without fighter escorts. Your big ship should be the core of a mixed fleet, not a standalone combat vessel. Even just 2 escort fighters can make a dramatic difference in keeping enemy fighters at bay. Use terrain and positioning to your advantage. Station your large ship near structures, asteroids, or other obstacles that limit approach vectors and force attackers to come in along more predictable paths where your turrets have a better chance of hitting them. Focus fire is absolutely critical. Designate someone as a fire control officer whose job is to call targets and ensure all turrets are engaging the same threat. 6 turrets hitting one target is exponentially more effective than 6 turrets hitting 6 different targets. Consider equipping ballistic weapons on your turrets. They have slightly better performance against fighters due to partial shield penetration and higher alpha damage. Yes, you'll need to restock more frequently, but the improved combat effectiveness can be worth it. Research turrets working in your body are student, always keep moving. Even large ships are harder to hit when moving unpredictably. Use decoupled mode to change your vector while keeping turrets on target. Include ships with EMP capabilities in your escort group. A well-timed EMP can temporarily disable fighters that get too close, creating windows of opportunity for your turrets. Communication is everything. Establish clear comms protocols where gunners call out target positions and coordinate focus fire without cluttering the channel. For turret gunners specifically, manual aim often outperforms auto gimbals against unpredictable targets, so practice without assists. Lead targets far more than seems intuitive. You almost need to aim where they'll be 2 seconds from now, not where they appear to be going. Use the clock position system for clear callouts. Gladius at 2 o'clock high, moving to 3. Don't waste ammunition shooting at targets beyond 600 to 700 meters unless they're flying in a straight line. Use burst fire rather than continuous fire to conserve ammunition and increase the chance of landing hits. Coordinate reloads so all turrets aren't down at the same time. Focus on applying consistent pressure rather than trying for killing blows. Also worth experimenting with are different turret loadouts. The conventional wisdom favors repeaters for the rate of fire, but there's a strong case to be made for cannons with higher alpha damage, since you'll hit less frequently, but each hit will count for more. Some crews have reported success with mixed loadouts, some turrets with rapid-fire weapons for closer targets, others with high-velocity cannons for longer-range engagement. So now you've seen the current state of multi-crew combat in Star Citizen, the technical reasons behind the imbalance, the mathematical reality of why it happens, and what could potentially fix these persistent issues. But this isn't just about complaints, it's about finding solutions and pushing for positive change. What's been your experience with multi-crew ships in combat? Have you found any strategies, loadouts, or tactics that actually work consistently against fighters? Or do you think the current balance is actually appropriate for the game as it exists right now? Share your experiences in the comments. And be specific. If you've had success with particular weapon combinations or tactical approaches, the community would genuinely benefit from hearing about them. There's nothing more valuable than real testing and experience sharing when it comes to figuring out complex game systems. And if you happen to be one of the developers watching this, first, thanks for creating this incredible universe we all love to spend time in. And second, please understand that the multi-crew experience is absolutely central to what makes Star Citizen unique. It deserves focused attention and bold solutions, not just incremental tweaks that don't address the core issues. The dream of commanding your own capital ship with a crew of friends working together to overcome challenges isn't dead. It just hasn't been properly realized yet. The foundation is there, the ships look amazing, the stations and roles are laid out. It's just the actual combat mechanics that are letting the experience down. In the meantime, recognize the limitations of big ships in the current meta. Find ways to enjoy them for what they can offer rather than what they can't. And don't let these challenges stop you from experiencing the unique moments that only Star Citizen can provide. Because despite all these issues, there's still nothing quite like standing on the bridge of your own capital ship with friends at your side, watching a sunrise over microtech, or plotting your next adventure across the stars. That's the promise we all signed up for. And hopefully, with enough feedback and development focus, it's the promise that will eventually be fulfilled.